Okay, so I've tried this twice and it's worked out really well, so I'm going to video. We are going to make a cast iron skillet chocolate chip cookie made from scratch. What you're going to need in it is some all-purpose flour. This is just our flour container. Some dark brown sugar. Some chocolate chips, of course. Some Morton kosher salt. It doesn't have to be Morton, but it does have to be kosher salt. There's a reason for it. It's because of the thickness and the way it is done and what it does for the cookie. Just trust me on that. It's got to be kosher. An egg, a stick of unsalted butter, some baking soda and baking powder, and some pure vanilla extract. And we'll show you what comes next. Okay, so it calls for a cup of the dark brown sugar, but it's packed in. Okay, so we're going to press this in and then, get any more in it that we have to. I'm going to be using my tripod on this shortly, but I've got to get it set up. So this I'm just holding by hand. We just pack it into a full, so like this is hard packed in. So there's your cup of brown sugar packed in. Okay, then it calls for a third or 2/3 cup of chocolate chips, but we know that, or I know from the recipe that we're going to split it up. So what I do is I put a third of a cup in this thing and a third of a cup in that thing. And so they're already separated. And I might do just a little bit more than a third of a cup because I like chocolate chips. So now we've got a third of a cup of chocolate chips in each. It also calls for a, well, obviously there's an egg if I didn't say that. It calls for 1 1/4 cups of flour. And so what I do is I put, and I'll show you that in a second, I go ahead and put 1 1/4 cups of flour in a bowl so I'm ready to dump it at the right time. Okay, so it says, or the recipe calls for the unsalted butter to be cubed is what it says. But basically what I do is I cut along the teaspoon lines or the tablespoon lines or whatever it is. There's 8 lines and I just put 8 pieces in here like this. And we'll be warming this up. Oh, the other thing that you need to do while I'm doing this is you need to set your oven to 350. Okay, so while you're doing all this other stuff, you've got the oven set for 350. So we're gonna warm this up and we'll see what goes from there. Okay, I'm testing out my tripod. So anyway, we've got the butter in here and we heat it up on medium low, okay? And what we're gonna do, you'll see in a minute, is the butter will start to melt and then we're gonna swish it around so that the butter covers the liquid, the melted butter covers like the first third or so or half of the sides of the pan. So it's already starting to melt a little bit. You can see that, and you want to get it on the bottom of the pan, and then I'll check in when it's melted. Okay, so it's melted a little bit more, and so what you're going to do, and I'm gonna, you think you can see that, is we're just gonna take it and swish it around, okay, and you can see that you want it to kind of just tilt it and swish it so it's covering all of the sides. Okay, you see that? Couldn't have done this without the tripod. Great idea, Chris. So anyway, we just swish it around so it covers kind of like a little ride here, ring around the skillet. So you're making sure it gets all the sides really well. And then we'll wait till it completely melts. Now once the butter is completely melted, you can see that there's Still a few cubes that haven't completely melted. We turn off the heat and let it cool for about 5 or 6 minutes. You want the butter to just be warm, barely warm in the skillet for the next section. So we'll just swish it around a little bit more. And okay, it's completely melted. So we're going to turn this off and wait for about 5 or 6 minutes, and then we do the next thing. Okay, so at this point, the butter has kind of cooled off a little bit, and we're going to put the 1 cup of packed brown sugar in, kind of unpacking it now. Get it out. So there it is, okay. And then we're going to add the egg. Okay. And then we're going to add 2 tablespoons of pure vanilla extract. Now, I may not have 2 tablespoons left, but we're going to put in whatever we have. And if I don't have 2 tablespoons, we'll pretend that I did for the sake of this video. Didn't quite have 2 tablespoons, but it'll be fine. That's just for flavoring. And then what we're going to do, excuse me, is we are going to mix this until it's nice and smooth. And this is where I hope the tripod comes in handy, and I think it actually is. So we're going to mix this up with a spatula. Probably use a wooden spoon if you didn't have a spatula like this, but you just want to get it all mixed up and smooth. This is your first step. We're going to be adding the rest of the things later, okay? So what we've done, again, we've melted the butter. Then once it cooled, we've added the egg. We've added the vanilla extract, 2 tablespoons if you have it. And then we've added let's see, what we do, the egg and the brown sugar, duh. Okay, so now that we've got this nice and smooth, okay, we go to the next step. And in that step, we're going to add the flour. Okay, and this is why it was good just to go ahead and pre-measure this. So I've got a bowl, and I'm gonna pour that in there, okay? And then we're going to add and I'll tell you how much in a minute, we're gonna add the baking soda and the baking powder and the Morton kosher salt. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to add a half a tablespoon of the Morton salt. I'm pouring this over the sink, but we got a half a tablespoon of the kosher salt. Okay, just dump that in there, and then a half a tablespoon of the baking powder. You can see that I'm half a tablespoon of the baking powder. Put that in there. And then a quarter of the tablespoon, fourth a tablespoon of the baking soda. Fourth of a tablespoon. Put that in there. And then we mix this all up. Okay, and it will start to, here in a minute, all you see is a big white mess, but in a minute here it will start to resemble what looks kind of like cookie dough. And then we're going to put the first thing of chocolate chips in, but first we got to get this really mixed up well. Love the idea of the tripod so I can just do all this. So you can see it's starting to look like cookie dough. Okay, so at this point, I'm going to pour my first mess of, you can see that, yep. First mess of chocolate chips. So that's 1/3 cup of chocolate chips that I just poured in there. Okay, and now I'm going to mix those all up. And you want to make sure, by the way, you've seen me do this, that you can see, you know, all this stuff around the edge. We're going to make sure that we get that down into the skillet, okay, and away from the sides. We want the sides to be as clean as we can when we get it baking, okay. So we got this all mixed up. Looks like chocolate chip cookie dough now, doesn't it? Had our doubts, okay. And then we'll just spread this out, okay. Trying to make it even across the skillet, okay. And then we've got that all spread out. And then we take the other 1/3 of a cup of chocolate chips and we pour it on top. If you think you need to spread it out a little bit, you can. It's not spreading very well because they're stuck in there. That's okay. Okay, and then we're going to take this and we're going to put it in the oven. So we stick that in the oven for timer for 25 minutes. Okay, and just walk away and clean up the mess you've made. In 25 minutes, you've got a nice skillet chocolate chip cookie. Okay, 25 minutes is up. And so we're going to take it out. Make sure you have a pot holder because this will be hot. And voila, here we go. Now what you can do with this, I would let it sit for, you know, a few minutes anyway. You can put ice cream on it, you can put sprinkles on it, or you can do what I do and just cut it up and eat it as it is. But there is your cast iron skillet chocolate chip cookie. Enjoy.